Hey listeners, have I got some great news for you? Foreign Equine are offering a 15% discount code to all Eventing podcast listeners. And it's very simple. All you have to do is head to their website, pick out all the products that you'd like to buy, and when you get to the checkout, just type in the code EquiRatings Podcast 15 to receive your discount. Happy shopping!
Listeners, welcome back. Episode 2 of our little Red Mill series, the best podcast in the series of the Eventing podcast. And of course is sponsored by the best company out there, Red Mills. And therefore we have the best nutritionist out there in Louise Jones from Red Mills to join us on this episode again.
Thank you very much, Fight. That was a lovely introduction.
Well, I mean, we all know it's true. I mean, Derm is in denial that, he thinks his episodes are more important or more interesting or more this, but actually this is what people want to know about. This Absolutely. Is the gold. Now, this is our second episode in this series, and actually this is going to be a little bit of a not a contentious topic, but hopefully we won't be the example of the poor communicators that we're going to reference later on. And actually, it was a great question from Lucy C off the Discord group, and she referenced saying, "Louise, here we go. This is big."
Okay.
She goes, from the European Equine Nutrition Forum, it is said that the relationship between vets and nutritionists should be strengthened. What should this look like? How would the average Joe go about doing this? There you go. How about, there's a hot potato for you.
Wow, that is a big question. But I think a really important one. Ultimately, vets, farriers, physios, nutritionists, we all have your horse at the center of what we want to achieve. We want to achieve their best health, maximize their performance. And to be fair, if we're all working together, it's going to make everyone's job a lot easier and hopefully mean that client gets the very best for their horse. So I think it's a really valid question and an important one. How do we all work together so that we're doing the best job that we can for our clients?
I mean, for starters, the key and with everything in life really is communication, isn't it? It's trying to be generous with your time and actually going that extra yard for, in my case, for my client, or for, to be available to have those discussions with the nutritionist. And yeah. You're quite right. My veterinary industry, we are, the veterinary industry is probably not thriving at the moment in various ways, and that's all another topic for another day. But
no, I think
being generous
right.
with our time is what's key,
yeah.
And having that availability, and hopefully we're not just stuck in ivory towers and not being available for discussions, and and that's probably a rightful criticism at times. But I communication's the key, isn't it?
And I think equally that criticism can go other ways as well. I think the work she's referencing was a study done at the University of Glasgow. And actually that found that most nutritionists in the UK only interact with vets a few times a year. And for me as a nutritionist, you actively have to try and interact with the vets. It's not all about, necessarily the vets coming to you or making themselves available. Sometimes you have to speak, put yourself out there and say, look, I would like to speak to your vet about this. This is a clinical condition, or this is a problem that actually where we work as a team, we're going to get a better result. And so, the nutritionists need to be more proactive as well, I think, as the vets being open to communication. So it's a two-way street. And I certainly, we know that vet students sort of have better confidence in giving nutrition advice when they've spent time speaking to or have a lecture from a nutritionist that's maybe working in the field. So part of it maybe starts in the education field as well of vets, and kind of building that relationship right from when they're studying, and teaching them that there are these professionals out there who specialize in nutrition as a subject. You don't need to know everything about nutrition as a necessarily as a vet. You can kind of ask other professionals in the field for help and support. So I think there is undoubtedly a lot of work that still needs to happen to improve collaboration between vets and nutritionists, but it's a two-way street. It's
Definitely.
the nutritionists have to do their job as well.
I think also that, I think sometimes as vets we put ourselves under a lot of pressure to think that we need to know the answer to everything, of every question all of the time, and definitely when I remember when I was a new grad and recent grad, you're in that big wide world, and you got to answer questions and queries, and you've got clients that are understandably concerned and worried and so on and so forth, and you feel that pressure to be able to have the right answer every day, every minute of every day. Yeah. But actually knowing the right people to be able to discuss this with, the right people to be able to communicate with, and to come in a kind of a real collaborative way is what's really important. And I think also that, listeners, I think that the other thing that I would probably just say that the key to this is that, is the role that the individual, the average Joe that Lucy references, or the rider, or the pro yard, or whatever we're talking about, is how that person in the middle works to make that communication work. We're not working by Chinese whispers, let's say. The nutritionist said that the horse is actually perfectly fine and it doesn't need this differently, or what do you think? And those kind of situations can always be more, be made to be a little bit more confrontational than what is the real world. So I think my feeling
they can easily happen. You people are just getting slightly the wrong end of the stick, or you're getting half a picture rather than the full picture. So what you don't want to do is have people telling you different things, because that just confuses the whole picture, and it's not going to make you get the best out of your horse, or be the best result for your horse. And I think one of the great things about sort of the last few years is that we've all got much better on Zoom. We've all got much better on Teams and things like that. And I'll quite often sit and have a meeting with a rider or a racehorse trainer, the vet, maybe other, the grooms on the yards, and myself, and we'll all just have a half an hour discussion about whatever issue there is. And we'll make a really proactive plan that everybody's agreed on, and everybody can have a clear plan of action. And it just makes the job so much easier. And, vets, I have the highest respect for the veterinary profession, but they are very busy people. They're expected to retain a huge amount of knowledge. And me as a nutritionist, I'm just focused on nutrition. That's what I do. And so I feel that, generally we can add to that conversation and work together better. And it is really important, you've only got to look at things like gastric ulcers. The vet will go in, diagnose them, give, the medical treatment. But we know that if the client doesn't make dietary changes, those ulcers are likely to return. So if we all work together, we can come up with a plan and hopefully, minimize the risk of them happening again, or manage them so that they're not so severe. So, I think it's really important that we work as a team.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a really good example. I'll go to lectures, and we'll talk about gastric ulcers, and the presentation and the diagnosis and the treatment and everything like that. And you might get one slide on the nutritional side of it, on what the food is, and then we're about 3 or 4 lines about what it should be, and that, and actually putting that into practice, and the practical, the practicalities of that, and actually to be perfectly honest, the actual details behind that. We as a profession can't always have that. So yeah, it's communication is the key, and I think that's where that comes from, and I think that's always really trying to push that collaborative approach, which hopefully listeners you hear from us on the whole box with the various things that we've done in the past. Bringing all the different professionals on board with that team approach, whether that be physios and the farriers and the trainers and the coaches and the nutritionists. There's so many people that are part of these horses' careers. We're all trying to achieve the same thing. So, I think the key.
Another area we can possibly collaborate more is sort of that there's still lots of areas of nutrition that we obviously need to learn more about and develop a greater understanding of. And I think developing sort of research in conjunction with veterinary professionals is a good way forward. And I'm very lucky working for Red Mills in that we have an excellent relationship with many large veterinary practices all around the world, and a lot of them use us as our feed supplier anyway. And we tend to offer sort of diet referral services for inpatients and things. But I think research is an area that we could collaborate more on and actually, help to develop a greater understanding of nutrition. So don't get me wrong, I think things have improved since, 20 years ago when I started out. I would very rarely speak to a vet, and I would say now I'm in weekly contact with various vets around the country about individual horses or individual yards. So I think things have improved, but I think there's still a little way to go. But hopefully we will get there.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And you actually made a little point right at the beginning about sort of, how often the sort of the vet students or the recent graduates can often be more motivated to be sort of involved in that part of it. And listeners, if there's something that I would go, I think, grouchy old vets like myself can get a little bit stuck in their ways, and actually the more recent grads, are just so, they're so motivated to do the right thing for their horses, and and actually are probably far better communicators than grumbly old grouchy buggers like me. So I think that it's finding people that you want to work with and that you trust, but actually making sure that they all communicate together. And often the best way of doing that is direct communication rather than that, maybe, intermediary or he said, she said sort of scenarios. So, I love it. It was a great question, Lucy C. I love a hot potato topic, and we might have to have a few more of these. And great. And Louise, I thank you for being so honest about it. I think it is it's something that we should all be aware of, and I think it's applicable to many aspects of equine management and horse management, let alone the interaction between nutritionists and vets. I think you extrapolate that to physios and to farriers and to coaches and to trainers and all that sort of approach. We're all trying to achieve the same thing.
Exactly. Ultimately. We all have the horse at the center of what we want to achieve, and ultimately, as I said, if we work together, we're going to get the best results.
Well, there you go, listeners. What about that? That was good. If anyone else has any other hot potato topics that we can approach, then I'd love it. Yeah, I think I love a good conversation about those sort of things, and don't mind being a bit controversial too. So, Louise, thank you for your time. Thank you for me stealing 20 minutes to talk about how we can improve our professions in the future. And listeners, I hope you enjoy it. We've got a couple more in this series to go, and looking forward to catching up with Louise for the next one.
Thanks, Mike.